Hello and welcome to our channel Buzz Savvy, and today we have a video for you on aggregate demand and aggregate supply model in economics. First, let's define what we mean by aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Aggregate demand refers to the total demand for goods and services in an economy at a given time, while aggregate supply refers to the total supply of goods and services produced by all firms in an economy at a given time. In other words, aggregate demand represents the total amount of spending in an economy, while aggregate supply represents the total output of goods and services. Now, let's look at an example of how these two concepts interact. Let's say that there is an increase in government spending, such as on infrastructure projects. This increase in government spending leads to an increase in aggregate demand, as people and businesses spend more money on these projects. As aggregate demand increases, firms respond by producing more goods and services to meet this demand. This increase in production leads to an increase in aggregate supply. However, if the increase in government spending leads to an increase in inflation, firms may start to increase their prices to keep up with the rising costs of production. This increase in prices leads to a decrease in aggregate demand, as people and businesses can afford to purchase fewer goods and services. As aggregate demand decreases, firms respond by producing less goods and services, leading to a decrease in aggregate supply. Overall, the aggregate demand and aggregate supply model helps us understand how changes in government policy or other factors can affect the overall level of spending and production in an economy. By analyzing these changes, policymakers can make informed decisions about how to manage the economy and promote growth. To illustrate this concept, let's take a look at the following graph. In this graph, the horizontal axis represents the overall level of output or GDP, while the vertical axis represents the price level. The aggregate demand curve is downward sloping, indicating that as the price level increases, the overall level of spending decreases. The aggregate supply curve is upward sloping, indicating that as the price level increases, firms are willing to produce more output. The point where these two curves intersect represents the equilibrium level of output and price in the economy. This means that the quantity of goods and services that consumers are willing and able to buy is equal to the quantity that firms are willing and able to produce. At this equilibrium point, there is no shortage or surplus of goods and services, and the price level is stable. Economists often use this concept of equilibrium to analyze the overall health of the economy. If the economy is operating below the equilibrium point, it may be experiencing a recession, as there is not enough demand to support full employment and production. On the other hand, if the economy is operating above the equilibrium point, it may be experiencing inflation, as firms are unable to keep up with the high demand for goods and services, leading to rising prices. Overall, the aggregate demand and aggregate supply model is a useful concept in economics as it helps us understand how changes in spending and production can affect the overall health of an economy. By analyzing these changes, policymakers can make informed decisions about how to manage the economy and promote growth. Thanks for your time to economics, and I hope that this video may have enlightened you how the concept of demand and supply works at a country level. If you like this video, share it with your circle and subscribe the channel so you may not miss out on watching the videos to come in the future.